welcome back to another episode of the S.E.M podcast. Jack Bryce and Zach Hewlett are back here again, and today we're joined by Colby Hawkins. How you doing, Colby?
Good. Thanks so much for having me.
Where are you calling from today?
I am calling from Arbuckle, California, north of Sacramento by 1 hour.
Nice.
All right, Colby. So we were giving Colby kind of a hard time before we started recording that he's got to catch up on all this. So if you served with Colby, you're next. Right?
That's right.
Okay. So Colby, start us off with back when you got your call. Anything leading up to that and how you found out you're going to Scotland.
All right. So I remember I was selling satellite TV door to door to prep for my mission. I was really anxious about being able to stop people on the street and talk to strangers, knock on their doors. So I thought I would give a summer of selling Dish Network a try with some buddies from BYU. And I remember just being about 3 hours away from home, selling in Modesto, California. My parents said the letter had come with my mission call. So I drove home after knocking on doors all day. And one of my best friends from high school, Chad Blackwell, was already at the house. He was excited to see. I would later baptize him. And I just saw him last night at a play. We went to go see a play that some of my students in high school were in, and he was there because his niece was in the show.
Wow, that's cool.
That's awesome.
He's a great friend, super excited. I remember all my family were impatient, waiting for me to get there. It was probably 9 or 10 p.m. at night. And when I saw where I was assigned to serve, it just felt so right immediately. I remember that, even though it's about 20 years ago. And
I know, crazy.
At Scotland and not, like Los Angeles or Oklahoma. So I was really excited to be able to go overseas. And I just felt very grateful. One of my best friends got called to Torrance, California around the same time. And maybe the Lord knew I needed somewhere more exotic to really focus and be all that I could be. I don't know, but I was grateful I was going to Scotland and not California. But,
that's great.
From it, just being like, that is so cool, and how few missionaries get called. I remember looking up, there are like 130 to 160 total in Scotland. And I was just really grateful for that opportunity. I still remember leading up to actually getting on the plane to go out to Preston, England's MTC, how nervous I was. And I don't know, man, like my parents expect me to do this. Is this something that I really want to do for me? And just being really anxious about it. And I'm so glad I did end up going.
I love it.
And so I have a question for you based on that. Do you regret knocking doors before your mission based on how much you did it, or was it good prep?
And I remember telling my dad, I was like, if this is what the mission is going to be like, Dad, I don't want to go, when I was out knocking on doors that summer. And he didn't really say yes or no, but at the time, I remember in between knocking on doors, I would sing I Need Thee Every Hour, loud enough probably to be heard. I felt like it was one of the hardest things I could do, to really go outside of my comfort zone, being more introverted, and to go do that as a summer job. So I'm glad I did, though, because it helped a lot on my mission, and having that experience helped a lot. And I was able to later be in leadership positions and go on exchanges with a lot of missionaries. And I was more comfortable at the door and stopping people on the street than maybe some were because of that experience. It was tough, though. And I wouldn't, I don't know, still when we go on splits with missionaries now, I just get in the mindset, all right, let's go do this, and get high energy and go and get back in that mindset. But it's something that I wouldn't choose to do for a living.
Agreed.
Cool. All right. Well, let's skip over the mission now. I guess, what was the timing of like when you entered the MTC?
It was right before Thanksgiving. I think November 22nd, 2004, and I returned maybe November 19th, November 22nd, 2006.
All right. So
Love it.
2006, catch us up with what you've been up to since you got home.
All right. From 2006?
Yeah, you can go as much detail as you want.
Minute by
or
minute.
just high level.
Oh, man. Okay.
Whatever you want to share.
2006, back to BYU. I'd done a year before. Wanted to look into doing accounting. I was a music major, media, music, sound recording tech major at BYU. And after the mission, all the cool mission presidents were accountants, had lots of money. So I was like, I got to check out the business school. So I switched and did an entire year to do the accounting program at BYU. And after 2 full semesters, I decided, no, man, I need to go back to music. There's just something that's not, that wasn't jiving with me. I wanted to somehow make a living doing music and be able to support a family. And accounting was just a little bit too dry. I don't think I was smart enough, probably not good enough at math to stay with accounting. So if you're an accountant, that's awesome. I respect you. And I met Madeline Nelson in one of my new music education classes. She was a violin music education major. I was voice. I decided to try going into education with music, and I'm glad I did because I met her. And I still I asked her out on Valentine's Day. It was our first date, and it was at a concert with the women's chorus she was in. I was in the men's chorus, and I could see her as I was texting her across the balcony. It was actually in the Provo Tabernacle at the time. Now it's the Provo Temple, so it's kind of a cool history. And so we started to, I was the first person to hold hands with her, and she was, I was her first kiss. I'm glad because I think all the other guys would have scooped her up if they had known how incredible she was. So she and I started dating in the spring. We got married in December of the same year in 2009. Then we headed out to North Carolina from Utah. We're both from the West Coast, me from California, she's from Arizona. And we wanted to have a bit of an adventure. At that time, we purchased a house on the shore of North Carolina in a town called Hampstead near Topsail Beach. And I was teaching high school choir, high school theater, high school piano classes, and she was teaching middle school choir. And about 2012, I got a phone call from my choir teacher. Choir meant a lot to me growing up in high school. And so he was still in Vacaville, where I'd grown up, and he said he was retiring. So I applied for his position. And a couple weeks later, I took a plane ride back to California, and I've been here ever since. And Madeline sold our house and then moved a few months later to come join me in California. And I think this is my 12th year teaching at Wilsey Wood High School in Vacaville. And I teach their top group, the Sylvan Singers. A few months ago, we went to France and toured Paris and Normandy. A few years before that in Ireland. And I hope to take them to Scotland in 2 years.
Oh, man, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I have to say, Colby, I enjoy watching the things that you're doing on your social media. Like everything that you share is so focused on your choirs and your music groups. And it just shows your passion and love for the kids that you're teaching. So carry on. It's been fun.
Thanks, man.
Great, man. From coast to coast. Then
yeah, big move.
Yeah, it was. It took 3 to 4 days in a U-Haul to get out to both ends. Grateful for Madeline for taking care of coming back. I didn't have to deal with selling our house in North Carolina or packing or moving. We started our young family in 2017 with Cameron when he was born. He's now 6 in first grade. And then we have Carter, who's 4 years old, going to start kindergarten next year. And then our daughter, Heather, is 2 years old. So she retired from teaching in 2017 to be a full-time mom, which is crazy hard. I can take like 10 minutes with my lovely kiddos before I start being like, all right, I got to be more productive. I got to go to work. So I do the side business, hawkinswoodshop.com. I always wanted to make a lot of money growing up and being an entrepreneur. And thankfully, being a teacher at the summer, that I can really focus on the side business. And maybe in a few years, we'll be able to move closer to Madeline's parents in Utah. They live in Cache Valley. And I can do side hustle full time. So got my eyes on that, but doing better than I deserve at the moment. I must have chapped a lot in the rain because I got a smoking hot wife and great kids and a great job. So
there's plenty of our fellow S.E.M missionaries that live in the Cache Valley that if you need us to connect people, I mean, I could call out names, but I won't. But we can connect offline, and we can certainly tell you who the people are that are there that would love to help you guys find a spot there in the future.
Cool. Yeah, very interested in that.
Yeah, there's a whole network out there for sure.
Yep.
Well, that's very good, Colby. It's wonderful to hear all of that for sure.
Agreed.
All right, so take us back now, 2004 MTC, or if you want to start in Scotland, wherever. Let's just walk through and go through your memories.
I was sharing some pictures and stuff with Zach on Facebook Messenger just to kind of, I needed to review, been 17 years or so. So I went through some photos and some journals. And so I have in my mind that in Preston, England, at the MTC, Elder Biecker was my missionary companion. He's from Norway, Daniel Biecker. And I remember being with like Elder McDonald, Elder Christofferson, and Elder Biecker. Those were my guys from my MTC group that went to Scotland. And I was blessed to be their district leader. I was like, guys, it's going to be tough. And I remember Elder McDonald saying, man, it's not going to be that hard in the MTC. And I'm like, oh, that's good. I'm so glad that you had that faith. So I just remember talking a lot about how hard it was going to be for our district once we hit the mission field. And maybe because I felt like I had some experience selling door to door, and if that's what it was going to be like. So I was trying to prepare our district in that way. One of the highlights of the MTC was Elder Biecker gave me a blessing when I had a cough or like a cold, and we had felt the Spirit so strong. And remember, he still remembers giving me that blessing in the MTC, and I do, and it sort of connected us for life. And I remember he told me my parents were proud of me and that I was doing the right thing. And I just had put so much pressure on myself that, you know, his words meant a lot to me, and I hope they were inspired. And it was a really spiritual moment that I'll never forget. We were only in the MTC for like 18 days, maybe 19 days.
Yep.
And so we took a train with our little group, got picked up by the assistants to the president in Scotland at the time was Elder White and Asariato.
That's right.
Name. And I think I did. He's from Ghana. Elder White's from England. Elder White was kind of a jerk and really
call him out, Colby. Tell
really
him.
Arrogant to me, you know, but he was such a good teacher too. And so that's just his personality. So I'm sure he impacted a lot of people on his mission because he had such a strong personality, and I mean impacted for good. And Elder Sariato, I remember being just super kind and nice. So it's funny to me that they were companions, but it was so cool to meet these
fire and ice, right?
yeah, these high-powered like assistants to the mission president right off the bat. I remember Elder White driving the white van, passenger van, from the train station to the mission home and going so fast. And I was like, man, we're going to hit so many of these side mirrors going through these alleyways. It's pretty fun.
Man.
And the diesel loud engine in that thing. So it was really cool. I still remember going when we were driving in Scotland, how tight those spaces were. And it's amazing that I only got in a couple of incidences. I think my accidents were all involved parked cars. So when I was driving, I was good. I guess I just couldn't park. But so Elder White was asking the missionaries, what are you most worried about? Or, what's your greatest fear about your mission? And I said, probably stopping people on the street. That sounds like the worst thing to me, Elder White. And he said, good, I'm going to take you, Elder Hawkins, on Princess Street tonight. And we're going to stop people on the street for 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
I was like, okay, I'm going to show him what I got. And just tried my best. And wasn't too bad. So I remember he actually came over to the person I had stopped and we started co-teaching together. So that was Elder White. I remember him leading a few districts and zone conferences and stuff, just being very type A personality and stuff. And he gave me that first experience, golden questioning, when you stop people on the street, GQing.
Right.
I was grateful for him throwing me in the deep end. So that's how we overcome fears. We just go full out and until it doesn't make us scared anymore. So Elder Bass, Russell Bass from Sandy, Utah is my first companion. And did you guys know Russ at all?
Yeah, you were asking about timing. He and I were in the same group.
Oh, cool. So, okay.
And I'm from Sandy, Utah, so we became like this really quick.
No way. You guys are both from Sandy. So he was my trainer, and my first area of 4 areas was Stranraer. I remember learning from Elder Bass how to play the guitar. We both ended up with guitars, and when we would go out to teach, we would sing opening songs from the primary children's book or the hymn book to bring the spirit. I remember he was really good with people, and I learned from him how to socialize better and be better with groups and connect with people. He was so good at connecting with the people he taught and the people he hung out with. And we weren't as strict following the rules then as I was later on my mission, I would say that. But I think I needed to learn to relax. And Elder Bass was great at helping me relax and connect and really love who we taught. And I was probably a little bit of an annoyance to him because I didn't feel like I had worked hard that day unless we had gone out and knocked on some doors. I think he won me over on not doing that every day. The more time we spent together, I think we were together for 3 months. We had taught a man named Bruce and his stepdaughter, and I had baptized the daughter, Dion, and Bruce, Elder Bass baptized. And that branch there met like in a in a room upstairs in like the retail district, a pretty small group. I send lots of love to Bruce and Dion and hope they're doing well. Miss you guys. So that was the first area.
Are they the ones that own the guitar shop?
No, they didn't own a guitar shop. I think he worked for the ferry, and he got married soon after his baptism. And his stepdaughter was just going to school. I think she was 11 to 14 at the time. But yeah, we travel all around on our P days, recording our musical performances in castles or in beautiful.
I have your album, and it was one of my favorites that I listened to my whole mission. I can tell you that, Colby.
That's crazy, man. I don't even know what was on it. It's good.
It was great. I mean, Russ was my district leader in my second area in Dunfermline. He was in Kirkcaldy, and he's like, dude, this is the kind of music you want to listen to. And he gave me a copy of it, and I was like, I still have it in my mission stuff, and it is, I easily listened to that thing 100 times on my mission. Just so good to hear you and Russ singing the children's hymn books and all the beautiful hymns that you guys sang together. It was awesome.
Oh, thanks, man. Maybe you could send that my way digitally. I'm not sure if I have a copy.
I'll pull it out. I'm actually at my parents' house right now, so I'll see if I can dig it out and get you a copy.
Thanks so much.
For sure.
Yeah, like I became so into, man, when I get home, I want to get a Gibson guitar. They're so nice and expensive. And we were really into playing guitars and stuff. I wish I knew what became of that guitar that I had. I think he got a new guitar and I bought his old one. So that really connected us through music and be able to feel the Spirit that way. I know we had watched this show where the missionaries are in Holland and the guy's kind of trunky, and they teach
the best 2 years.
Yeah, and we watched that quite a bit. He was, poor guy, having a tough time with a girl from home when I was with him, and so we watched that to try and get focused, and then we'd play our music to feel the Spirit, and sometimes we'd rock out as well.
Yeah. So, one of Russ's favorite memories with you that he shared on his podcast was there was an instance where you guys were having a rough day and you knocked on a door and saw a piano behind the girl who answered the door, and you said, "Can I play your piano?" as your introduction, and that's how you got in the door. Did you use that a lot on your mission?
Man, that's genius. I don't even remember that, but I love hearing that. I remember using, "Hey, can I get some water?" to get inside, a lot in Glasgow's area, but not many pianos in Scotland, maybe because of the small apartments. So that's really cool.
True, yeah.
That he shared that. I'm glad. I wonder what happened on that meeting together. Yeah, he's a cool kid. I remember he had lots of money. He's working at Best Buy, had lots of stocks, and we talked about entrepreneurship and stuff a lot too.
Nice.
There was a pagan family that owned a bookshop that we would visit and try and teach. And like legitimate, the woman was like a practicing witch, and but her boyfriend liked to play the guitar, so we would talk about music together as well. And they had a daughter who was a teenager that played guitar, and so we would try and teach them through music too. But I just remember that they had really cool old books from like the 1800s, and I think I bought some, and they had sheet music in them from Ireland, like Irish folk songs and stuff. And I think I those. So after Stranraer, I went to Hamilton, a suburb of Glasgow, and I needed to learn how to work hard because Craig Rasmussen was my companion. And reviewing my journal, I was like, man, isn't there more to a mission than working like 24/7 and knocking on doors? Like, let's do it smart. Let's like connect to the people. And it was an adjustment from being with Russ to go to Craig. And I needed to humble myself and learn hard work again from Craig Rasmussen. He's such a good hard worker, so consistent. And he would do impressions of general authorities. I remember that would crack me up sometimes.
Yes. Oh man, Craig had some great impressions. They were always on point.
Elder Faust. But I remember just like, this is so perfect. Like, I learned how to connect one-on-one and love the people from Russ. He's so good with people. And then with Craig, how to put in an honest day's work. I was whining in my journal, like, he doesn't believe I'm sick and making me go out and knock doors and stuff. And I later got like antibiotics from the doctors there, and he let me rest after that. He's like, oh, okay, he must be really not feeling well since they gave him antibiotics. So I felt like I was in a position with Craig to learn what I'd learned from Russ and to take point on when we taught and to connect with the people. And I hope Elder Rasmussen could see that. And if I could learn hard work from him, maybe he could learn, how to connect and be playful. And I think we complemented each other really well that way. And I remember I'd be reading these apostate books like Dr. Hartman's Color Code Personality Profile for my morning study. I'd like have all my missionary companions take the color code test. I'm like, oh, Elder Bass, he's a red yellow. He likes to be in control and likes to have fun. Elder Rasmussen, he's a blue. He really likes to work hard and make a positive difference in people's lives. And I'm a white, I'm an introvert and just like to go with the flow. And he's like, man, you need to read the scriptures. And I was still up mentality with being with Russ, and we would read whatever, and like, just, it was pretty loose with my training. So Craig and I would visit with Winifred every P Day. We'd go see a castle or a historical site. That was a lot of fun. There is a man named John Ryan Park in Hamilton who missionaries have been teaching for a while. I'm sort of an eternal investigator, and I'm glad that I could be a small part in his conversion, and he was baptized eventually. There's also, I remember a highlight of being in Hamilton with Elder Rasmussen was on my birthday, April 25th. I turned 20, and we had made the decision to just stop people in the streets to go GQing for hours, several hours in the afternoon. We didn't have any appointments, or right after lunch. I remember just dedicating that time to the Lord, being like, this is the hardest thing for me to do, God. And so it's my birthday. Like, I feel like I'm tithing some of my time here on this earth just to spread the gospel. And I just dedicated that day and that afternoon to Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ. And I felt so in tune with the Spirit. And we had really gotten into a rhythm of working hard. And we woke up early every day before 6:30, and we were in when we were supposed to be, and we were really following all the rules. And there's a lot of joy that came from working so hard with Craig. I remember also stopping a former nun on the high street in Hamilton. Her name was Agnes. And we were able to teach her, and she ended up getting baptized and joining the church there. And if I hadn't gotten into that good work ethic with Craig and stopping people every day on that high street, maybe we would never have run across Agnes. One of the best lessons with her was teaching her the law of tithing. She was very poor, probably completely living off government subsidies, and like had sandwich meat but not enough money for bread and stuff like that. And immediately after we taught her the law of tithing, she like went into a different room and gave us cash, like 20 what's the money called there?
Pounds. 20
Yeah.
quid.
20 quid. That's it, in pounds. So I was just like taken completely aback by her humility and her faith. She barely had enough money to live and to eat well. She's in her 80s, and she, as soon as we taught her about the law of tithing, was determined to live it immediately.
Wow.
That was really cool. That was such a beautiful experience that I'll remember forever, was her faith. And after Craig was called to a new area, maybe Dunfer, I'm not sure where he went after me, but I also remember, you guys remember Elder Grant? He was British.
Rory,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think he even started to do carpentry after his mission too. But he was like a traveling missionary, and he stayed with me and Craig for 5 days or so, and we worked together. And it was a lot of fun because he could work hard, but he also had a great sense of humor. And he was just, these are amazing, like, people and examples in my life. Russ and Craig and Rory, and such cool guys and such incredible missionaries. So I remember when he came and stayed with us for a week, and I was just reading in my journal that he used to get up at 6 a.m. So after he had left, I guess I heard an alarm. His alarm went off. I guess he set his alarm on our machine. I got up at 6 a.m. thinking it was 6:30, and I was all dressed and ready to go at 6:30. And I remember Craig waking up and be like, "Dude, what are you doing, man? It's 6:30. Why are you all dressed already?" And I'm like, "Oh shoot, Rory's alarm went off. I thought it was ours."
That's awesome.
I also, like, I wanted to be obedient more so, and I remember doing like a side part for the first time when I was with Craig. You know, he got me into being super obedient, so I tried, and I remember coming out, like, my hair just does like this faux hawk thing, so I tried to do a side part and it looked so bad. And he saw me for the first time that morning. He's like, he wanted to sort of make fun of how it looked, but I knew he was trying to hold it back because he saw I was trying to be more obedient. He's like, "Oh, okay, Hawkins, okay, like, looks interesting, man." But he really inspired and motivated me to try to be 100% obedient, and that was great. So after him, I had Elder Rhodes, which maybe not a lot of people know, but he was a cool guy, kind of more introverted, but really worked hard. He ended up going home early on his mission for, I think, some issues related to his mental health. I don't know if you guys know Elder Rhodes or his first name even. I'll have to look it up. But
Brian, I think.
Brian, yeah. I was looking at my journals, and interestingly enough, I went on an exchange with Elder Rhodes in Hamilton.
No way.
Before I served in Hamilton. So
Okay.
we've tried to connect with him, and we're working on having him on the podcast.
He was such a good guy. Like, no guile. I remember that. Just no guile. Just wanted to be the best missionary he could. And it was really hard on himself. And I remember it was with Elder Rhodes, we started to teach John Ryan Park again. We had cut him off because he enjoyed our company, but he wasn't progressing. So with Elder Rhodes, we started to see him again. And he also probably taught Agnes as well. And we did all the dinners at Winifred's home. So, and at that time, with Elder Rasmussen and me, there were 2 companionships in Hamilton. There were 2 flats, one around from the corner, and I think after a certain time, they got rid of one of the areas and combined it into one. So I'm remembering, I I'd have to look back in my journals to see who the other two were, but I think I have a picture that I was sending Zach. So I've got pictures for all these stories and stuff. Yeah, I was worried about being able to remember anything, so I went through and tried to catalog some things today.
Which
All
you
right,
did
so
really well.
oh, thank you. Probably not as well as others, but there's a little bit. And this is the Preston MTC group. So we got Elder Howard, Jason Howard, McDonald, Christofferson, and Biecker, and then me. So that's in Preston, England. Okay, so I referenced A Blessing by Elder Biecker. He wrote in like my T book, the testimony book, that it's great to give you a blessing. I think it helped me just as you. And he's always good at little sketches and stuff. I had him draw me like the plan of salvation, 3 degrees of glory, and pre-earth life and stuff, because he's good at doodling.
He
all right.
was a very good doodler.
Yeah, he's so good at drawing. Here's Russ and me and Dion and Bruce. And we baptized them in the community center's pool.
That's cool.
And then doing our guitars together. And we're such babies. So fresh off the train ride to Edinburgh. And here's the group that we arrived with. And I guess our trainers. There's Elder White, Sariato, and the Vreens. I love President and Sister Vreens.
Yeah.
I know I was there when they had a new mission presidency come in, and it's always tough, I'm sure, that transition. Here's Agnes. Elder Howard was in the other Hamilton area when I was there with Elder Rasmussen and Elder Rhodes. And here's the wonderful lady who immediately paid tithing to the church.
Awesome.
And Elder Rasmussen and Rory. So Craig and Rory.
You have to read Elder Grant's caption right there. It's my favorite.
Hi, he's a gripping bandit.
So good.
Isn't he a good missionary? Oh, man.
Oh,
He
so
was
funny.
hilarious. I loved working with him. Craig was very serious, but I think we had our moments of levity too. But it was great to have Rory there. And then John Ryan Park ended up getting baptized. So I had been transferred to Inverness as the district leader from Hamilton. And I got permission from the mission president to come back to see his baptism because we had taught him for like 6 months. And when I got in and got picked up, the baptismal font, hot water was broken, and he ended up not getting baptized that night. But all the members of us had a party at the church, and we talked and shared stories, and it was really fun to be there. I'm glad they let me travel for that night.
Yeah.
He still is in contact with me, and I even talked to him. I really hope to introduce my wife to him in person and be able to visit Scotland. So
He's in touch with me too, Colby. Like, John's one of my favorite people.
yeah, he's really enjoyed hanging out with the boys and stuff, and I just hope he's doing all right and still active. I think he is.
That's good.
And Winifred someday, hope she gets baptized.
There you go.
I actually gave Winifred a ride in my Porsche I had during college. I think she flew over for a wedding.
Oh, serious?
Yeah, and I took Winifred on a ride with the top down. So
that's amazing. I bet she loved that.
yeah, maybe scared her. I don't know. Winifred gave Madeline and me in 2009 as a wedding present. She gave us this statue, sent it all the way from Scotland to BYU, and
Wow.
it's just a cool statue. Madeline was like, who is this person? I don't even know. And she's so nice, and she sent this wedding gift. So, all right. What other photos? So that takes us to Inverness. I'll dispense with the photos at the moment and just do sort of a narrative.
So how long were you in Hamilton?
I think I was in Hamilton 6 months. So now I've been out about a year. Maybe I was in Stranraer for 4 to 4.5 months, 3 to 4.5 months. And Hamilton for 6. And I was sort of at my halfway point. I remember Elder Christensen, Paul Christensen, was my district leader in Hamilton. And he was a good guy, just kind of low key, but obedient and faithful. And it was during that time I spoke to President Vereen's about something at like a zone conference, something personal, and for like repenting. And then the next thing I knew, I was a district leader. So it's funny that asking him for help, I guess, humbling myself, and he could see, maybe I was ready for some more responsibility. So I came up to Inverness, Elder Briggs, Aaron Briggs, and the British guy, popular Mo, started with an M. Do you guys remember?
Like a pop star you're talking about?
No, Elder Briggs'
A
companion
missionary.
that I replaced was good friends with Elder Lineker. Do you remember? And kind of like a round face, funny.
Elder Mortley.
I think so. Yeah.
I think that's timeline about right.
He was really good with people and stuff, and so respectful around adults and stuff, but very crazy and funny. So I got there, and I think the kitchen, like there were dishes overflowing all over the floor, molds, cockroaches and stuff. And there were like 6 bunk beds, lots of mattresses. Man, what's going on?
Jeez.
So Elder Briggs and I went to work. So we cleaned that flat. We started, Aaron Briggs was super nice to spend his own personal money so we could park downtown Inverness and go GQing every day. And I was just thinking, man, there's no like active investigators here. So we cleaned up the blue book and we were trying to find new people to teach. And I remember the Williams family in Inverness, what a great family, and how the mom was the Relief Society president and would help with joint teaches and just was really spiritual. I think they ended up getting divorced, right? I don't think the dad and her are together. But I remember Lisa Williams played guitar. So that family was a real strong influence and made up the branch in Inverness. And one of Lisa Williams' friends, she was a teenager, was named Paul George. And we were teaching him, like such a good, like 16-year-old man, was hoping he'd go on a mission. I was so grateful to be able to teach him and to baptize him. And I think either at the end of my mission or right soon after, he told me he was struggling, and we had written letters quite a bit back and forth. So I was trying to keep in touch and encouraging him to serve a mission. But I remember he came out to me as gay. And just like my good friend Chad Blackwell back home, he had done the same thing after I baptized him too. So at that time, I didn't know what to do. We lost contact, but I'd really like to get in touch with Paul George again. Such a strong, spiritual dude. And Inverness, Elder Howard, who was with Hamilton, elders. He also followed me up. We ended up being near each other. He was in Invergordon, and sort of followed each other around our home missions. He's a good guy, kind of a goofy dude. So Inverness was so beautiful in the Highlands. At one point, Elder Osmond and Elder Peacock and Elder O'Brien, John O'Brien, and I were sharing a flat. And I remember there's a little bit of conflict because I came home once and Elder Peacock and Elder Osmond had turned our apartment into a fort with cardboard and sheets and stuff. And, like, man, I can tell something's up. Like, what's going on, Hawkins? I'm like, man, I just don't know if that's how we should be using our time. And like, he was my zone leader when I was in Stranraer, so I really looked up to him. So we did this sort of conflict this whole time. It's like, man, no, I know you're a good missionary and stuff. It's just they were super playful and so we were sharing a flat with them. I remember being, taking on the lessons from Craig and Rasmussen, from Russ and Craig. So I was trying to work hard, but not take myself too seriously. And maybe Brandon, who's an excellent missionary, was there to remind me not to take myself too seriously. And so we didn't, aside from Paul George, I'm trying to remember who else we were teaching, really helping out the ward there. I remember going out to Ben Nevis. There was a family, the mom was a member and the husband was not, and visiting with them. And I have some photos of like Peacock, Osmond, me, and O'Brien doing some wood chopping out there for that family and trying to teach them. I think it was a difficult place to teach because there weren't a lot of immigrants up there, whereas especially in my next area and my last area, Edinburgh, we were teaching all sorts of immigrants, but the Scottish people themselves weren't keen on hearing about our religion. Perhaps it seemed to me at the time, or any religion in general. So a lot of the churches there in Inverness and in Edinburgh were beautiful on the outside and then nightclubs on the inside because they had been sold. And so I do remember we were working really hard to get people to come to church, and they were finally going to come to church, but church had been canceled in Inverness, and the snow was just all over the parking lot. And the president, or I think it's a branch, they said it wasn't safe to have church because of the parking lot was overflowing with snow. So John O'Brien and I turned our van into a snowplow and found a huge piece of like plywood, and we strapped the plywood onto the front of our Vauxhall, this purple van that we had. Go around the parking lot with him, like hanging out the trunk with a salt spreader, and we're just throwing salts. And then I'm like trying to push the snow with this plywood taped to the trunk or to the front of our van. And we got it to the point where the branch president said we could do church. So I think that's an illustration of how determined we were and I am when I get fixated on something.
That's legit.
Hopefully the van was all right. I've got some photos, but something John remembers. I loved how intelligent John O'Brien is and was. I know he had been at Stanford, and I ended up visiting him after the mission in Stanford where he lived. But he and I just had a lot of fun with him. I just loved how smart he was and his testimony. And Preach My Gospel is kind of wordy. Maybe it's less so now, but he and I would just sort of make fun of it sometimes. I remember he and I both loved Truman Madsen, and he had a book, The Philosophy, or The Eternal Man by Truman G. Madsen, and he'd read a lot. That was also the first time it was like eye-opening that there was something it's like, wow, this is like an entirely new mission experience going to Zone Conference. And it was so inspiring and so motivating. I was like, man, I wish everyone could do this and not just the district leaders. It was so cool to, I guess, feel like special and have like the close ear of the mission president, and as leaders try and come up with the best way forward. And I just love traveling to those like zone district leader training things. And the zone leaders would train us. I don't know, it was really inspiring to me, and I love that. I'm so grateful for that. I needed that at my halfway point for sure. I remember also in Inverness kneeling with Elder Briggs, not much success, and just kneeling over a map and praying, like, please help us know where to go. And it was snowing. We picked this neighborhood. We were knocking on doors. There was a lit up home at the end of the street, and it was freezing. And I think we both decided, all right, let's just make it to that home that has the lights on at the very end of the street. We're not going to skip there, but let's that'll be our finish point. And a young woman opened the door. She's maybe in her early 20s, late teens. And we taught her about the Book of Mormon. And we left her a Book of Mormon with our testimonies in it. It was so important to me at that time that we just flood Scotland with as many Books of Mormon as possible. I feel like it had the power to convert after we were gone, and maybe someone would pick up and read it. So that was a big focus for us. And then after Inverness, I think 6 months or so, I spent the rest of my time in Edinburgh, my last area. And my first, I was a zone leader with Elder Jonathan DePold. Has he done the podcast yet?
He has.
Yep.
Nice. So that dude, what a leader, man. Type A personality, jet pilot, dude. He's like a wizard with leadership. And it was really cool to be taught by him and to learn how to be a better leader. And I remember he was not comfortable with GQing. And so that was like my one sticking point. Like, we got a GQ every day. They want us to contact 10 people at this time, every day. And it was part of our custom indicator. Whereas, how can we ask our district leaders and districts not to GQ, but we don't? And I guess he probably hated it as much as me, but a testament to him is he went out and did it with me. But he and I both knew it probably wasn't the most effective thing. And I think that's why he wasn't a big fan of it. But we found Agnes that way. So I was like, maybe we'll find our Agnes up here, dude. You never know. He's such a good teacher. In Edinburgh, he introduced me to the Chinese student crowd. There's so many students from China getting their masters from the University of Edinburgh. And we were listening to how to learn to speak Mandarin in the car as we drove, and trying to we're teaching a dozen Chinese speakers who were young. Elder DePold introduced me to Lynn Shimmons, who I spent 6 months teaching, and through all the zone leader changes, I was still there with Lynn. And I just felt like if she could stay active and get baptized, she'd be Relief Society quality material, president of the Relief Society. She had a daughter with autism named Lorna, and Laura, and she couldn't speak, but her daughter was 8 or 9 years old and would use sign language. And I have some pictures there. But finally, Lynn was able to get baptized, and that was a big moment for her and for me on my mission. We taught her for a long time, almost a year. And Elder DePold was the one who introduced me to her and loved her first. So after Elder DePold, I think I was with Elder Lineker. I loved in Edinburgh being able to scope out real estate and find places for missionaries to stay when we were asked to do so by the mission president. Elder DePold stayed close by, I think, as an assistant to the mission president for a long time. So his influence was still in my life. As I got to work with Jared Lineker, and then McBride. I was trying to remember Elder McBride's first name. Do you know?
Marcus.
Marcus, yeah. And we spent a lot of time together. Elder Wong had been called to the Edinburgh Mission as a Mandarin speaker. Because we were teaching so many Mandarin speakers, and being in a strong ward. I remember the bishop there. I think his name was Paul. He was a huge, like a giant of faith. And I heard he had maybe not been as active in the years preceding my departure from Scotland. But he and his wife were so, do you know them at all? Either of you? I think Bishop Laird, Paul Laird. So they were young. He was a teacher. I guess there's some conflict between him and maybe another family in the ward. And it was really hard on him. Such a great man. So I remember President Vreens was always praying and very emotional whenever we talked about Bishop Laird, and he really felt for him. This young bishop was trying his best, and he was an amazing supporter of missionary work. And I think we had baptisms like every month, and the Edinburgh zone was just on fire. It was such a cool experience. It's funny that Jared and I don't think got along very well, probably out of all my companionships. I think I am just so understated and sarcastic that it was hard for him and probably everyone to tell when I was being serious and when I was playing around. And I just, it was Elder Midgley, right? Elder Midgley was close friends with him.
Yeah.
So I would catch like Jared, talking to Midgley, like, oh man, it's so hard, probably complaining about me, rightly so, and stuff. And also my style when contacting was more American, whereas Jared was more polite. Like, oh, you're eating dinner right now? It's okay. Like, we'll come back later. And he'd be gone, didn't want to interrupt. Very, very polite. And I'd be like, Jared, man, we're here to preach the gospel. Let's go. Like, who cares about their dinner? And he just probably like, oh, this ugly American attitude, we continued a little bit. I think he and I were only together for 6 weeks, maybe 3 months at the most. After him was McBride, and he's very close to Pilkington, and Elder Wong and I were all sharing a flat, and it was cool to be able to work with Trevor Hout.
Trevin.
Yeah, Trevin, Hout, DePold was there in the area, me and Pilkington and McBride and Wong. And once we were a zone leader, it was like mission on steroids. You got your own area you're trying to teach, and then you're helping your district leaders, and you're going on splits a lot and a lot of traveling. Something I think I learned from Elder Farmington, he's from Farmington, Utah. There was an assistant or a zone leader that left a note with me after we had been on exchanges, just being like, hey, Hawkins, I really appreciate how you do this and this and this. I noticed you do this, and it's impacted me in this way. And I was like, that's cool. So I stole that from him. And whenever I went on exchanges, I'd leave like a secret note in someone's scriptures, hopefully find it after I left. Sometimes they found it before. And just tried to be positive and encouraging like he was to me.
It's cool.
Was it Blake Farnsworth?
Yeah.
He's from Farmington, New Mexico.
Oh, okay. So Blake Farnsworth was companions with Paul Christensen, I think, for a while as zone leaders or something. I always equated them together for some reason. Maybe they were zone leaders together when I was in Hamilton. So I think it was Farnsworth. I remember Elder Bradley too, earlier on in my mission. He was a great example to me, and Elder Adam Rollo.
Yeah.
So just some things I tried to pick up, and always build up whoever I went on splits with and make their numbers so good that and tell them, you know, what they were doing well and sincerely. Uh, so I've I remember Truman G. Matson and his wife coming to speak in Edinburgh before he passed away. I was a missionary there, and that was really cool. I was reading my journal notes from his sermon. I loved his teachings all my life. And the Chinese people, I remember Yu Yi. I still follow him like on Instagram. He's traveling a lot. I don't know if you guys knew Yu Yi in Edinburgh. He was like a convert, 18 to 21 years old.
We've definitely heard about him.
He would come on joint teaches with us like almost every day. And this girl named Shelly was really into joint teaches. We always had as many joint teaches as we could handle in Edinburgh, and the work was just like on fire. It was so good. And Bishop Laird was so supportive. And I remember just going out with a bang, just finding people and teaching as much as I could, trying to help. One thing I regret, there were some missionaries who wouldn't take things as seriously as I wanted. And when we were saying goodbye, one of them was like, "All right, man, we'll keep in touch." And I was like, "Yeah, right." Like, I was so self-righteous about it. I felt terrible afterward. And I think when President Vreens and Sister Vreens went home, he was wise enough to be like, to push back against us in wanting to send missionaries home for being disobedient. And when he left, the new mission president came in. There were a lot of us who sort of were like, "Yeah, let's clean house" as zone leaders, and I think I was involved in having 2 missionaries be sent home from the Edinburgh zone, and I also regret that. I think allowing them to finish their mission, and even if they weren't like 100% obedient or whatever, would have been a lot more helpful to them and their future families. And so I remember those things sticking out to me too. Of course, Pratt's Hill and reporting, and I could confidently say that I worked really to the best of my ability and worked very diligently, reporting back to the Lord. So let's see, now that I've said, also there was like this spiritual Jedi named George from Ghana who just showed up in Edinburgh for like a few months. You know about George?
No, I don't.
All right, dude, this guy was just like a spiritual superhero. When you go on joint teaches with us, I don't know how we first came in contact with him. Maybe we were trying to reactivate some of his family that lived in Edinburgh, but we met him. And he would like go out with O'Brien and me, and Pilkington knew him very well too. And he would like give us blessings, like almost like patriarchal blessings, just like motivational priesthood blessings. And his faith was so strong. He knew the family that like started the church in Ghana and like had visions that, you know, someday the church would be here in Ghana. And it was just really cool to meet someone who lived day to day having belief that there is power in the priesthood and real miracles can be performed in mundane everyday things. So he's kind of like a mentor to the zone leaders in Edinburgh for a while. I've got some pictures with him. I remember in Edinburgh, because one of our soon-to-be baptized, this woman that we were teaching, she was so spiritual and such a good person, but she had had an abortion earlier on in her life. And so we had to get a special interview with her and the mission president in order for her to be allowed to be baptized. And I think of her because, you know, I've done things that I would associate with being just as bad. And how she was humble enough to to take the step, even not knowing if she would be allowed to be baptized. He was such a good example to me of just loving the Savior. And all right, no matter what you've done after the mission, during the mission, before the mission, like, you can be forgiven. And I love her for that and her example to me. But I've got some pictures if you guys want to see some.
Yeah.
Good.
As district leader in Inverness, I came up with this thing called the chair of love, where everyone would sit in the chair in front of everyone, and we'd all say one nice thing about them, like, Elder so and so, you are always like getting up early and trying your best. And at the end, I would put a picture of Jesus Christ on the chair, and then we would tell Jesus like what we loved about him. I've carried that to like how I teach today. I still do the chair of love with my high school students. I don't put Jesus up there at the end, but there's just something I thought looking at these pictures from Inverness. But a lot of these team building things that I do in high school, I'm passionate about teaching morals. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens by Sean Covey, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff by Dr. Carlson, just how to be honest, have integrity. I'm really passionate about that. And I gained like my first experience with that stuff being a district leader. So I'm really grateful to have had that opportunity in Scotland, because it's like more important to me than teaching music. And I love that in choir, there's not really a curriculum that you're forced to do. And there's no state testing for choir. So I get to make it up. So
That's awesome.
but, this is Paul George in Inverness. And he was a friend of the Williams family, who were really stalwart members there. And he wrote to me after I had moved on from Inverness, saying I was doing good. I think I would like to go on a mission. I know that I can make a difference to people's lives as you've done for me. But I think I'd be about a year from now. I'm glad that you settled in Edinburgh. So he's a good dude, and I hope he finds his way back. Here's the snowplow.
That's so good.
So John was like, he taught me how to work with members and how to make a sweet snowplow. And he labeled them all in his funny way.
The Vauxhall, what was
Yeah.
it? The Murano?
Yeah.
Meriva? I think it was Meriva, right?
Meriva. Yeah.
And
I think I mixed up one of my cars, sorry.
it was this car. I hit a parked car, and I had to go in and be like, hey, we're missionaries, but I just hit your car. I'm so sorry. Here's my insurance info.
God.
I went at them. They didn't want to hear from us after that, but you know. This is Lisa Jack. She is a recent convert in Inverness. And Brandon and I would sing sometimes in church, and I think the branch really liked that, and that was cool for me.
I would have really liked that too, Colby.
I looked up to Brandon a lot, and his musical history, and his dad and his family, and so I was probably so self-righteous that he was annoyed with me, but I hope not. And he actually reached out to me at BYU after our missions and asked for a letter of recommendation for him to be allowed entrance into the BYU School of Art or BYU School of Music. And I just couldn't say enough nice things about him.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Our Edinburgh zone, we did these crazy huge activities, laser tag. We went through like a scary mansion type thing. We just tried to do these cool activities to bring everyone together as much as possible and to get as much strength from each other. Elder Bettridge, I think that was his name.
Yeah, Craig.
Yeah, he was the one who's like, man, I hope you do really good, and I hope we hang out together. And I'm like, whatever, dude. Like, I didn't have a lot of respect for him, so I was such a jerk when we said goodbye. I'm sorry, Craig. All right.
I'll let him know you said that, Colby.
Thanks, man. Are you still in touch with him?
He was in my MTC group, so I'm in touch with Craig a lot.
That's cool. How's he doing?
He's doing really well, from what I understand.
Okay. So in Edinburgh, Elder Wong on the right, and then Pilkington and McBride. They were pretty close friends. But this group of the four of us were in Edinburgh in an apartment together for a long time. And let's see what loads. This is the George, this dude from Ghana. He just showed up, like really helped us out with missionary work. So Elder Pilkington and I were pretty close to him. I was reading through this, and Pilkington said some really nice things, like, I'm disciplined when I choose to be. I choose to get up on time, so I do. And choose to be super nice, gentle, near perfect person. So he's jealous or whatever, you know. He was an assistant to the president, something I never had the opportunity to do. I really looked up to Pilkington. And
I want to know the story on that picture about the broken bed. Do you know that story?
dude, I wish I had a story, but no, I think he just sat down on it and he broke it. So,
I'll have to ask him. He's another one from my MTC group that we'll get on here, and I'll ask him about the broken bed with you.
oh, that's awesome, dude. Please do. Let's see. George sending me stuff from he just had a cool way of speaking. He'd be like, when you say in the name of Jesus Christ at the end of your prayers, you're putting the stamp on your letter to Heavenly Father. Like, he's just very visual in how he taught the gospel. And I loved all the analogies that he would teach. And Pilkington and I were just like, wow, you were like a Jedi. He's so good. There's some Chinese people. Here's Yu Yi in the middle. He baptized one of these Chinese ladies we're trying to set him up with. And I know Elder Paul Christensen and Elder DePold were together for a long time teaching all these Chinese people. And we'd play basketball like once a week, maybe twice a week in Edinburgh, until Elder DePold left. And then it was just me and Elder Lineker. We're not basketball players, but these Chinese students really like to play basketball. So that was a great way to get them in the door. So many people at that baptism. This lady is from Ghana, so humble, in Edinburgh, and she joined the church. And then Lynn Shimmons, and all the Edinburgh like missionaries knew Lynn and were teaching her. I loved Elder McConkey. He's funny, dude. He's like, I picked you 3 times to go AP, but you failed me repeatedly. I always wanted you to move into the mission home. Blah blah blah. So this guy's a spiritual giant. I look up to him so much. So I just remember seeing what he wrote and being like, whoa, that's really nice of him. Something I do in my classes in high school is I have everyone put their name at the top of a card and we pass it around just like 30 seconds. Then you pass it to your right. In 30 seconds, you pass another card to your right. So you're signing everyone's cards, something that you appreciate about them, sort of like the chair of love. And I still do that, but that's something that we did in the Edinburgh zone for team building and stuff. The missionaries say nice things about each other. It helps you feel better and not be homesick. Then sort of culminated in the end of my mission being able to baptize Lynn Shimmons. So I joked around and she remembered me saying, my life's work will be done when you get baptized, Lynn, because she took so long. And I remembered I said that I would die happy. She told my parents, they came to pick me up and we toured the mission and they were able to meet all the people that I talked about. But I remember her feeding us haggis and telling me, telling my parents that she thought it was so funny that I was ready to die and at the end of my life's work if I could just get Lynn baptized. So
that's great. So Marcus McBride was your last companion then, you said?
Man, I think Pilkington was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, so DePold, Lineker, then McBride, and then Pilkington. Yeah. I remember being locked out of our car. Oh man, Trevin Hout and me. We had to go teach at a district conference or something, district leader meeting the next day. And Elder McBride and Elder Wong were asleep by the time we got back to our apartment, and we couldn't get in. And we slept in the car. It was like the worst.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
Slept the whole night in Edinburgh in that car. It's like freezing.
Oh man.
And
Holy
we
cow.
just drove to like the tall castle place, Stirling. I think there's a district meeting in Stirling that morning, and just went and like did training and top and stuff. And then like on the way back, we heard one of the missionaries had some board game like contraband stuff. So we drove back and I got a speeding ticket on the way back. I was so sad. Like, I have to come here and like babysit y'all. Give me those board games. I got a ticket. So
Was it a ticket from an actual Bobby, or was it from one of those speed cameras that would get you?
cameras on the top of a bridge. Yeah. So like a year after I was home, I had the like whoever the office couple was calling me like, hey man, when you gonna pay for this? So
Oh my gosh.
I had to cough up the funds, and I remember that. But Trevin and I sleeping in that car. I guess we could have gone to the mission home, but he and I were just so tired. That was like the worst night.
Oh man,
Uncomfortable.
that would be rough.
So sorry to talk so long. I wish I knew better stories and stuff.
You've done good, man.
Yeah, don't apologize. It's been a fun journey. You've got an incredible group of missionaries you served with, and those that you remembered. I mean, you name names, and we've talked to a lot of them. So
Yeah, there's quite a few you need to catch up on listening to.
Yeah,
and also quite a few you need to share with and send them our way.
No doubt.
Yeah,
That's-
I mean,
I'm grateful you guys are doing this. It's awesome.
yeah, it's been a lot of fun. One of the questions that we typically pose is, do you have any specific memories of President Sister Vrains that come to mind when you think of them?
Oh man, yes. As a greenie, I would complain a lot in my letters to President Vrains, like, man, Russ is like playing the guitar and we need to be out doing missionary work and stuff. And I remember him writing back, or I don't know, Craig, like, it's not fun and we need to like connect with the people or whatever it was. And I remember him telling me once when we met in person, it's easy to be pessimistic and complain, or like the members aren't doing enough. You know what's more exceptional is to understand. He didn't say like understand, but you recognize, yeah, people are gonna have gripes and be pessimistic about some things. But he said it's more rare for someone to be hardworking and optimistic. It's easy to be pessimistic. I just told my high school kids last week, it's easy to complain, and that's straight from President Vrain. Like, and after that, I had my moment where a couple months later, I like opened up to him, and then he like asked me to be a district leader. He was a really strong influence from afar. Like, we weren't super close, but he had a lot of respect for me for some reason. I guess, especially at the end of my mission, the comments he'd say in workshops that I was in, like, well, you can't be all perfect like Mr. Hawkins. He just really loved me for some reason. I remember Sister Vreen's getting sort of upset that we were all going to Chinese food, and I was taking sister missionaries in the van I was driving in Edinburgh to Chinese, we called it like our district or zone meetup. And I could tell Sister Vreens was sort of, not all there at the time. And I just went to him. I was like, hey, I think there's been a misunderstanding. And Sister Vreens got pretty upset and asked us to all get out of the van and really, was kind of yelling at us. But he knew that, maybe her health wasn't as good as it used to be. And I was just very sympathetic to that and would ask him about it. But yeah, I just remember him telling me, like, stop complaining, Hawkins. Like, it's easy to complain. Shut up and get to work. And that was awesome. That's exactly what I needed to hear, because self-righteous, Hawkins complaining, and just you need to find solutions. It's easy to complain. So I still try and pass that on to my students.
That's great.
About President and Sister Frederick, because you finished out under that.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
You're pretty close to me in age of our mission, Colby, and I completely spaced that. Thanks, Jack.
No, and I'm sad I never got to be with Jack.
Yeah, so now that you've been through your areas, I can tell you, no, we didn't cross paths.
That's funny. We were never near each other. Were you up in Aberdeen?
When you went north, I went south, and
Oh, okay.
never crossed paths.
I know, like, I remember seeing you, but we never served together. So
Yeah, I served with a lot of people you served with, or around them at least, So
yeah.
Yep.
What was the question? Sorry.
President Sister Fredericks.
Oh yeah. Okay. So, man, any things from them. Other than that, I feel like the zone leaders at the time took advantage of their newness to try and like clean house, because the Marines were wise to be like, no, we want to keep people on their mission if at all possible. So when I was finding condoms or stuff at missionaries' places, like Marines would be like, it's okay, like let's just teach and try and lead by example. And then the Fredericks would listen to the zone leaders, and we ended up sending a couple missionaries home. That's what I remember about them. Also, there was one zone leader conference. All the zone leaders were there at the mission president, and I was like, I just put myself out there. I think we should get rid of try and stop 10 people a day as an indicator that we need to report to our district leaders and zone leaders. We got missionaries out at 10 p.m. at night after they're supposed to be inside, stopping dangerous psychos on the street, who knows, because they're trying to get that indicator filled. I think instead we should have an indicator that says, how many Books of Mormon have you passed out or placed in a home or with an investigator? And I remember him saying, let's not change, the GQing indicator, if that's what German apostle, what's his name?
Elder Uchtdorf.
Elder Uchtdorf came, I think he was in Europe, and he said, if every missionary would stop 10 people a day, then the missionary work would double. He left an apostolic blessing on the mission field. And that's why that was an indicator. Have you stopped 10 people a day and talked to them about the gospel? But so I remember trying to do that. I remember Elder McConkie being like, yes, Books of Mormon, let's flood the earth with the Books of Mormon and stop having missionaries just randomly talk to people at night when it's dangerous. And I remember him being like, well, Elder Uchtdorf had a point, so let's stick with that. So he's very loyal to the brethren. Most of my fond memories are with the office couple that were with the Marines at the beginning of the mission.
The Lemons.
Yeah, because the new office couple and then the new mission president, I just didn't have that year and a half of build up and connection, so it was kind of tough. And I was there for a month, 2, maybe 3 with the Fredericks, but being more mature now, I'm sure they were all doing the best they could. And so, no, unfortunately, I don't have any good, like quotes or anything from them. But
It's okay.
You pass them my way.
Well, Colby, we really appreciate you taking the time out of a Sunday afternoon to visit with us. And, still, obviously, the mission, Scotland, is an important place to us. It's exciting to hear that you might have the chance to go back in a couple of years with your students, and that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So we share with you our love. We love you as our brother in Scotland.
Absolutely.
Me too, guys.
It transcends a lot. So
much respect for you. I hope the mission, comes back. I heard they just had more missions added to the church. My understanding.
I checked the list.
Ireland.
I checked the list. They weren't splitting it back up. But
dude, I want that temple announcement in Scotland, right?
Yep.
That's what the last talk of every general conference. It's like
edge of seats. Here we go.
Yeah, come on, please.
Someday. Well, if you have a repository or a list somewhere of contact info that I could add to, or from people that were baptized or missionaries, I'd be happy to help in compiling something like that. If there isn't one, we could do like a Google Doc and put all of our investigator contact info there. So for anyone who's taught them, maybe if we reach out to them anew, it can have a life-changing impact. Or just missionaries and stuff. I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, I think that's a great thought. I don't know how many of us have that recollection as well as we should. I mean, obviously we might have it dictated somewhere in a book or a journal, or maybe one of our little white planners that we carry around everywhere. But more importantly, I think the biggest thing with this podcast is helping people realize that the challenges that we all faced while serving in Scotland was not an isolated incident. Like, all of us had our challenges. All of us had our things that we disagreed with our companions on. We had our moments of high love and high need to strangle someone, just those moments where but while we were on a mission outside of district meetings and zone conferences or leadership conferences, we wouldn't have much contact or conversation with each other saying, hey, how's your companionship? Or how are things going with that? It was all very on an island feel. And that's what this podcast has allowed us really an understanding, is that we weren't alone in dealing with some of these problems or these circumstances, but we all still love the land that we served for that period of time and love the people. And now in hindsight, we can share how much we love our companions that stretched us beyond where we were at that moment in time.
Yeah. Ditto. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Colby. Again, we love you, and we'll certainly be in touch more. But thanks again for your time today.
All right. Take care.
All right. Cheerio.